Hello and welcome to the 2006 Smart Fortwo. So this car belongs to my father. He bought it just for, having a small city runabout, and it's actually perfect for that job, of course. It has a 698cc three-cylinder gasoline engine with 61 horsepower and 95 Newton meters of torque. And, it's actually fine because it weighs only probably 750 kilos at the maximum. So it's actually not too slow. It's actually nice to drive. It's kind of fun to keep up with traffic. Just the engine is really loud. I'll show you it a bit later on. But it's a really fun car because actually it's tiny. It's 2.5 meters long, as you can see here. So, for context, my BMW i3, which is already quite a small car, is 4.01 meters long. So this is much, much smaller. Of course, there are only 2 seats, but it feels pretty big on the inside. And you can see the spec here. This is a Passion model, so I think it's one of the most well-equipped, if not the most. And it's got 15-inch alloy wheels. It's got this two-tone paint, which is, I think, the perfect color for the smart car because it's sort of this dark blue and silver. And I think it looks really good. So let's take you on a tour. I'll show you all around the car, and then I'll show you the trunk and then the inside. Now, I'll get closer to the car just so you can see that all the body panels are just plastic. This is plastic, and it's completely flexible. This is done for symmetry because there's the fuel filler hole on the other side, but it's also an air intake for the small little engine that's inside the trunk, underneath the trunk, I should say. And then let's walk around. This is the trunk, so you can see the engine has sort of a little air intake there as well, or maybe it's to cool down more than anything else. Then you can also see that the gas cap is missing, so we're straight to the little twist-on cap. Still plastic. All the bumpers are plastic. Everything is plastic. And this as well. And this as well, actually. I learned that on this car. This window is plastic. And then, it's in quite good shape apart from this little hit in the front that has been fixed with black tape. But, it's actually a hole. That's kind of the disease of the smart cars. I think you'll find that a lot of smart cars from this era have a broken bumper because they're all plastic, and it's not really, it doesn't make any financial sense to sort of fix them up because it would mean fixing the entire front end of the car. And then you can see the wipers as well that go in a sort of minivan-esque direction. And I'll show you all the little quirks. So before everything else, let's show you the trunk and then the engine because it is under the trunk. So you can access the trunk by 2 ways. There is a button in the interior that I'll show you later on, and then there's this button on the key that you press and hold, and it opens the window. So you can reach under it and open. Now, there is a partial shelf here that we don't really use, but you can access the trunk here immediately, or you can pull on these little red tabs and lower the trunk pickup style. Now, this trunk isn't actually too small. It's not too terrible, and it's carpet lined. You can see there's a bit of oil. We bought the car about a year ago, but so far the oil is fine, but we still leave it in because it was put there by the last owner. And then, you can use this maybe as a seat. I wouldn't trust these cables too much, especially after almost 20 years now, but you can see it's sort of pickup style. And then for those of you who know, inside there, I don't think there is much in here in this car, but if you have the Cabrio version, well, these parts of the roof actually can come off after you've retracted the soft top, and then they can be stored in there because it sort of opens in half, and you can store them in there. So it's all well thought out. Now, underneath the trunk, there is a small cap that you unscrew that is here in my hand, and you can see the small engine that says Smart, engineered by Mercedes-Benz, and I'll talk about that a little more later on. You can see it's pretty accessible. It's right in there in the trunk. Obviously, you can take out the carpet and the heat insulation, and it's quite accessible, and you can see the fan there. Now, before I get in, since I just unlocked the trunk, I can unlock the car with this button here, and the central locking still works. And actually, I'm going to open the trunk here with this button to put my jacket inside. Now, before I climb inside, let's talk about these doors, because as you can see, they are completely frameless. So apart from this part, which stays on no matter what you do, when you roll down these windows using these buttons, and I'll show you in a minute how they look, you only have, you have a frameless, completely frameless door, just like a coupe, just like a normal coupe. And these doors, they feel solid, right? They just, they feel a little cheap just because they're made of plastic and they're really light, but they still feel solid. And I think that's partly due to the fact that this is a really rigid car. I know it seems crazy, but it is. And also the part that the door is very long, so it still feels somewhat weighty, just not as weighty as it would in a car made out of metal. Now, just to show you how it looks with the window down. So, as I said, completely frameless, and they still feel pretty solid. Now, let's climb in and I'll show you all of the equipment on the inside. So I showed you earlier the trunk opener button that is right here. And then above it, there is a small little storage place with the OBD2 port. That is very accessible, very nice. And then you can see the pedals. So one is sort of like a mushroom, and then the other one is like very, German car-like, or Mercedes or BMW, because it's the same sort of system in my BMW. It doesn't just hang from the top, it's actually fixed at the bottom. Now underneath the sort of leather and fabric seat, you have this storage tray, which is sort of like a glove box, because you'll see it does not have a normal glove box, and it just closes like a tray. And then once we climb inside, you can see that the key is in a very Saab-like place, which is in the middle here. I don't know if you remember, but I used to have a Saab 9.3 from 1998, which was, the same sort of key placement. Let's start up the car. And so here, let's go over all the controls. So you have your small lights and then the regular lights. Then you have your high beam here, or to flash right here. Then you have your fog lamp here in the rear. And then obviously you have your turn signals. You can see it doesn't have a specific turn side. It just says that your turn signals are on, which is very reminiscent of really old cars. And incredibly enough, it is a car that has the one-touch 3 signal, which is crazy to me, because the first car I've ever had that had these was the Volkswagen Up 2 years ago. So it's just crazy to me that the Smart car had it probably in 2002 when it came out, but at least in 2006 when this model came out. So here you have the mirror control, you have a sort of air vent there and a speaker over there for the stereo. And then here you have the gear selector, so you can see, I'm going to try to make the sun work with me, but I'm not sure it is. There we go. So reverse, neutral, and then you can go forwards and up and down. There's a 1 that comes up in the instrument cluster, and then if you press this button here on the side, the 1 becomes an A for automatic. And then before I leave this is a button that basically shows the trip computer, but it's a very small trip computer, because you get the temperature, the total mileage, which is 203,600 kilometers on this particular car, and the trip mileage, which you can reset by staying put. There we go. And then back to the temperature. So it's really, really, it's not a lot of information. And then I should point out there are no warning lights lit in this car. If I take off the handbrake like this, go back into neutral, and you can see there are no warning lights. So it's quite impressive for a 202,000 city car, 202,000 kilometer city car. And then when we carry on, we have the windscreen wiper control, obviously. And then the washer that comes from the middle, and the wipers are not that great, but on this car I should say, not just in general, because otherwise they work quite well. There we go. And then up here you get some of the most important controls. So you've got the rev counter, engine coming from behind me, and obviously this car is rear-wheel drive as well. I forgot to mention that, but it is. And then you've got a clock that does not work. I mean, the minute hand works, but the hour hand just doesn't work. So at least we can know, you know, what it's half to. We can know that it's half past something, but we don't know just what half past it is. And then these things just move around completely. So, and they're kind of flimsy. And then this is just to set the time, but they can move around, and same for this one. So if you want to show your passenger the time and the rev counter, well, you can do that. There you go. Oh, how fast is the engine going? And then you go back here, because I like everything to be set perfectly towards the driver. And then here we have the central locking, we have the hazards, and then we have the defroster for the rear windshield. We have air conditioning. You can hear the engine starts to struggle when I put on the air conditioning. Maybe you can, yeah, you can see the revs sort of move. Anyway, and here we have the heated seats for the driver and for the passenger. And they actually work really well. They heat up incredibly fast and incredibly warm. And then you have some controls for the air conditioning, well, for the climate control, so fan speed, and then you've got recirc or straight in, and then you've got the temperature control and where the air is going. So we've put it here for the winter. Underneath you have a stereo, which works kind of, so basically you have to, you know, really get into there to press it to turn it on, and I'm not sure it's going to do it. Hold on, there we go. So that's on.
Là aussi, j'ai appris à faire du montage.
And it works fine. And then
je comprends les métiers des
to turn
autres.
it off, it's sort of the same, but at least it works. The CD player doesn't work very well because it sort of stops after a while. But you also have an aux input, which you can find in this storage here. And you actually have a jack, which is crazy. I know it was 2006, but still, 2006, you know, for a small city car to have a jack input, it was kind of insane. And then underneath here you have the cigarette lighter, of course, and you have a little light, which is the interior light. So this turns on when you open the doors, and it sort of lights up this area. And then as well as this, when you turn it on, this one, the big one, turns on, and this lights up most of the car. And then you turn it off by doing this. Under here you have an ashtray, which I believe this is. Some cars have sort of CD storage here. This one just has an ashtray. And then here you have a cup holder and a second one if you've got a really big drink. And this comes out really easily, so you know I'm talking about this. There we go. So we try not to use it, or at least use it as one cup holder. And then that is about it. You have another sort of little storage pocket there. You don't have a glove box because you have a passenger airbag. And then all of these vents, and I forgot to mention this vent as well, which is the bigger one in the middle. Obviously on the passenger door you have a window control as well, and then some sort of storage buckets where we put some CDs. The seat is leather here as well. You have the seat belt that comes out of here and doesn't come on really well. And then up there you have a grab handle, and you have a sunroof. So basically, well, a moonroof I should say, and it's a panoramic moonroof because it goes the entire length of the car. It doesn't open, and it has just a teeny tiny little shade here that you can sort of move and place exactly where you want, where you need it, which is, you know, it's not perfect for the south of France, which is where my parents live, because it gets incredibly warm, and the air conditioning, at least earlier when I came this year, wasn't working perfectly. I think my father had it charged up now, so it should be better. But still, you know, I wouldn't mind having a full-length roof shade. And then you've got a little hook there for your suits. Here you have some little sunshades as well. And here as well, no mirror, this one. And it's actually full, because I've seen some smart cars, maybe it was the first gen before the redesign, where it's actually mesh, it's see-through. And then you have a tiny mirror with night mode, which is quite impressive. And then if we go down here, we have some place for coins, and we have the handbrake, which is very long, but works fine. Now, actually, before we go on the test drive, I forgot to show you a little trick on this car, which is this. Because if you put the key here and twist it, this panel comes out, and this is where you put the windshield washer fluid. Now, this is the brake fluid as well. And then, you know, you have a few access parts here to sort of, you know, position the headlights and so on. So let's put it back on and twist it, and you can see how it works in there, maybe. There we go. And then on the other side, it's gonna be the same thing, except it's just, you know, sort of an air intake, I think, for the interior air, and how to position the headlights as well. So you don't have to take off the entire front bumper to position the headlights. That is nice. And then this is back on, and yes, it is as tight as it goes. Now, to go on a drive, quite easy. You go into here, press the button for automatic, and take off the handbrake. And then it begins. Now, I've gone for a widescreen camera because I'm not sure how it looks from there, so let's see, and then you know, I'll go back for a drive if this doesn't work. I should say the car isn't rough. The road I'm here, well, I mean, I'm on the gravel right now, so it's quite rough. But let's go. So this is the automatic central locking. And then, you know, I'm already going 50 kilometers an hour, so it's quite fun. Now I just realized that one thing that doesn't work is the horn, which is here. Okay, so my phone obviously did not like the horn part of the car test, so I'm gonna hold my phone like this. I think it's just gonna be easier, but I am paying very close attention to the road, so absolutely no worries in regards to safety. And since it's an automatic, I don't need to switch gears, so this is fine. So, as I was saying, this car is really not made for a road like this. What it is made for is city driving at the most, but it's also kind of fun because it sort of doesn't hold the road at all. And so you end up having a lot of steering inputs just to keep it not straight, but, you know, to keep it turning, because otherwise it just doesn't turn. And the grip isn't great, but as I said, it does have traction control, and you can find a short video of the traction control working on my channel, and it actually has stability control as well. So it's not just traction. And I think Mercedes were really worried that the Smart would behave sort of like the first Mercedes A-Class, which failed the moose test, as it's called. You know, it sort of rolled over when you were doing a sort of really huge, you know, maneuver. And this is actually quite nice. Like, it gets up to speed quite nice. I'm going 90 kilometers an hour right now. And when you get to a turn, yes, you have to brake quite a lot and you have to steer quite a lot, but it's still, you know, it's fine. Like, it's kind of fun because it's kind of funky in the way it drives. So this is a lot of fun, actually, even on a twisty road like this. Now let's slow down. We are entering the city, well, the town, I should say, and I'm going to turn around right here. Now the turning circle is also incredibly tight, and since the car is so small, well, it just means that, you know, it's just really easy to maneuver around and to do free-pointed turns. So I should say that the driving position for the driver is fine, except that, you know, I kind of see it like this, so the steering wheel is a little bit low for me. I would like to jack it up a little bit, and there's no control whatsoever. But apart from that, it's fine. So it's kind of comfortable. Even the seat is sort of comfortable, and I could see myself driving this for a long distance. I'm actually really impressed because here I am doing over 130 and it's just so stable. It's so nice, and the steering wheel is stable, and it's really windy today as well. So apart from the noise levels, which are a bit high, this is doing fine. Like, this is an okay highway cruiser, which I never thought I would say about a smart car. There's the limiter, and that's about 140 GPS. So I've just been on the highway with this car, as you saw, and honestly, I'm so impressed with it. It's just so good. And first of all, I'm in 6 right now, and look at when I accelerate, you know, I can go over 90. I can hover around 90, 100, no problem at all, even in 6, which I've forced the gearbox to go into. Because above basically 90, it goes into 6, but it has to have a really stable speed, and like a lot of conditions have to be met before it goes into 6th gear, which is normal because the 6th gear is incredibly long, as I said. But you know, anyway, I was saying, I've been on the highway with it, and I'm just so impressed with it because it's incredibly stable. It feels like a much bigger car because the windshield is far away and the steering wheel is large, and it feels really stable. And on the highway today, it is incredibly windy. We're on I think some sort of weather alert for wind, so it's quite windy, even though it doesn't look like it within the valley here in the trees. But it's just so stable. It's so stable. The only problem is that it is incredibly loud, but apart from the noise, it's such a good car. It's such a good small car, and it's almost 20 years old, and I'm just so impressed with it. I think it is crazy good for what it is. You know, it's a tiny city car, and it goes 140, and it's stable, and it's comfortable, and it's got heated seats, and it's got air conditioning. The only thing that is missing is cruise control, but you know, the limiter is probably 135 GPS, so you can just keep your foot planted straight down on the accelerator if you're on the highway, and that's just fine. And it's got, you know, it's got a jack, and it's got heated seats and every equipment that you could possibly need, and it's just so nice. It's so good. I'm impressed with this car. Really impressed. And the lights are okay. The lights are pretty good as well. So really just a good all-around car. Even though it is tiny and old and could be scary for some people, but it's just not scary at all once you drive it. It's just, it feels like a bigger car. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Now, before we go on a little drive, I'm going to go, fuck.